In this WrestleTalk news, the backstage reaction to Brock Lesnar winning the WWE Championship, some potentially major WWE injuries, an update on Tony Khan and Lio Rush, and more. Subscribe to WrestleTalk for daily wrestling news videos like this one. It's the perfect New Year's resolution.
Support WrestleTalk!
It's been 48 hours now, but the wrestling world is still talking about the biggest news story of the year that is only 48 hours old. Jeff Jarrett debuting for GCW and attacking Effie. In a distant second in terms of news stories though, wrestling fans around the world have not stopped talking about Scotty 2 Hotty also debuting at that same show and doing an immaculate worm just like he did 22 years ago. You genius. In an even more distant third in terms of wrestling news, however, is that Roman Reigns announced he had tested positive for COVID-19, was removed from his Day 1 main event match against Brock Lesnar, which meant the WWE Championship match between Big E and Seth Rollins, which then became Big E, Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens, which then became Big E, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens and Bobby Lashley, would now be Big E, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar, who then went on to win the WWE Championship. In short, Brock Lesnar won a match he wasn't supposed to be part of again. But unlike Mustafa Ali and Money in the Bank, WWE talent found out about Brock's addition into the match a few hours beforehand rather than minutes. Speaking of minutes, and that new main event for the WWE Championship had quite a few of them cut down. According to Quizzlemania champion Sean Ross Sapp over at Fightful Select, the original Fatal 4-Way was set to go 30 minutes including entrances. In the end, the match went 8 minutes and 20 seconds, nearly 20 minutes if you include entrances, because I guess Brock Lesnar isn't paid by the hour. Sapp adds that Brock Lesnar is still listed internally as a SmackDown star, despite on screen saying he's a free agent and can go wherever he pleases. Going into Day 1, it was reported that the loser of the Universal Championship match between Brock and Roman would likely go on to win the Royal Rumble to set up a rematch, which would have been a rematch of a rematch, which in itself is a WrestleMania rematch from 5 years ago and 7 years ago. Yeah, I don't know why some people say WWE is stale either. But Lesnar winning the WWE Championship at Day 1 could throw around some really interesting questions for the direction of WrestleMania. However, according to Ringside News, so do take this with a pinch of salt, the Mania plans have not changed for Brock versus Roman. Apparently this was explicitly told to the writing team after the reshuffling of Brock winning the WWE title. And this change will only enhance the Roman Heyman Brock story. For what it's worth, this has also been backed up by Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio. Brian Alvarez added on the Brian and Vinny show that he was told the idea here is that they're going to do a champion versus champion at WrestleMania. Roman will be the SmackDown champion, Brock will be the Raw champion. Either a unification match or just champion versus champion like they do at Survivor Series. He does also note, however, that I don't have this 100% confirmed. I can talk to 100 people there and 100 of them will tell me, I think this is what's happening, but I don't know for sure. But that's WrestleMania in a few months. What's immediately next for Brock Lesnar? And what about the former champion Big E? Anyone with any sense about them would have seen how the 8-minute WWE Championship match was laid out. Brock Lesnar was dominating, Bobby Lashley was dominating the dominance, Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins had to work together to take out the dominating dominance of Lashley and Lesnar, and Big E was also there. The match was laid out this way, including the post-match stare down between Lesnar and Lashley, because Bubbles is set to be the first challenger for Brock Lesnar following Day 1. Dave Meltzer spoke on Wrestling Observer Radio that the booking of the match was to make sure Lashley looked strong coming out of it. He was the only one not to take an F5, he was the only guy in the match that Brock didn't dominate, and Lashley was able to lock on his submission that Brock couldn't escape from until it was broken up. What's interesting is that Brock vs. Lashley was meant to be a SummerSlam program back in 2018 when Bobby first returned to WWE. In fact, according to Dave Meltzer at the time, it was one of the reasons Lashley re-signed with the company. He was told one of the big shows that year would be him versus Brock Brock for the title after he retained it over Roman at WrestleMania 34. Lashley even beat Reigns at Extreme Rules to seemingly set this up, but then lost to Roman on Raw a few weeks later to set up a WrestleMania rematch for SummerSlam instead. Lashley wasn't even on that card at all. It was also reportedly a planned match for Lashley at SummerSlam last year, but that was nixed as they didn't want Lesnar to come back and lose his return match because the WWE Championship would have been on the line. And there was far more interest internally of the Brock versus Roman storyline that we're getting now. But you may have noticed in all of this that the one name we haven't mentioned in terms of big plans is former WWE Champion, the man who took the pin at day one, Big E. And that's because, as far as anyone can tell, there are no real plans for him next. He's not the next challenger for the title, as that's Bobby Lashley, and he's not the WrestleMania direction, as that's Roman Reigns. Brian Alvarez on the Brian and Vinny Show noted, "All I know is that Big E was going to leave as champion until all of this happened." This was seemingly confirmed by WWE on Fox's Twitter account, which tweeted out a photo of the results from day one, but underneath the picture of Lesnar had the text, "Big E defeats Lashley, Rollins, and Owens," which indicates that was the plan for the evening. That tweet was quickly deleted. Sean Rossap over at Fightful Select adds that the talent in the match were not told ahead of time who was originally going to win the championship match at day one, but the people he spoke to also believed Big E was supposed to retain. He does note, however, that's hardly confirmed. He's also reporting that people backstage in WWE felt that Big E wasn't booked consistently throughout his title reign. He adds that multiple people in his storylines, which presumably means Owens, Rollins, Lashley, MVP, etc., would go above and beyond to make sense of the storyline to the best of their ability. What did you think of Big E's WWE Championship reign, and what do you think he should do next? Let me know in the comments down below. But that wasn't the only thing that happened at day one. Drew McIntyre had a match with Madcap Moss that went longer than the WWE title match. Thankfully, Drew won that match, but was attacked by Moss and Happy Corbin later in the show to continue the feud, with WWE tweeting out that McIntyre was injured in the assault. According to Mike Johnson over at PW Insider, this isn't a work. McIntyre has been working the last several weeks with a neck injury, and this was done to write him off TV while he gets checked out. Johnson adds that many within the company noted how hard McIntyre has been working as of late, even with the injury, and that he went down swinging for the company. Dave Meltzer notes that Reigns versus McIntyre is still a plan for 2022. Ridge Holland also legitimately broke his nose during the kickoff match, and it's now being reported that Sasha Banks might have picked up an injury at a house show last night in North Carolina. It was noted by those in the building that following her match against Charlotte Flair, Banks had to be helped to the back after awkwardly landing from a backbreaker. A referee checked her out immediately after the spot. She finished the match, but needed assistance to get backstage. Thankfully, there appears to be nothing to worry about though, as Banks tweeted, "I'm good, thank you for the love always." The other big talking point in the wrestling world over the weekend was Big Swole's comments that she made on her call-in show, where she noted that she made the decision to leave late last year, explaining that they parted ways mutually, but while the company is making better strides than before, there is a diversity problem within AEW. She said there is no representation, truly, and when there is, it does not come across in the black community as genuine. She added, "You have to be able to call people out because not everything is perfect. I hope they listen to this with an open heart and not just, she's just saying this because of XYZ. I genuinely want them to succeed." Tony Khan responded on Twitter by saying, "I let Swole's contract expire as I felt her wrestling wasn't good enough," while listing talent of color that picked up wins on TV during December. To say this tweet didn't go down well would be an understatement. After all, he did exactly what Big Swole hoped he wouldn't do. And although AEW Extras coordinator Captain Sean Dean noted they're giving as many opportunities to minority talent and that the things we are expecting can and will happen, and Powerhouse Hobbs posting his praise for Tony Khan and AEW, Leo Rush was less than impressed. He posted, "If nobody says something, then I will, because this is up and now I'm pissed," later asking for Tony Khan and AEW to apologize. He has since put out the following statement: "I do not consider this to be a diversity issue, and I at no point have thought or said that AEW or Tony is racist. We can all clearly see that wrestling as a whole in the AEW roster is perpetually diverse. The issue at hand was a racial insensitivity issue. Having spoken with Tony and Mega, we have discussed the endeavors to further understand the struggles of the black community. I am grateful to be able to understand more about Tony and Mega's own ethnic backgrounds and glad that we are actively seeking input from an African American perspective. I look forward to working with Tony to keep making steps towards positive change. One final thing from us here, and we are proud to say that thanks to the friendos watching this video, this happened on Going In Raw's Friendo Awards 2021 in the Best Wrestling YouTuber category.
The winner here was, I'm pretty sure there's not a whole lot of ways to spell WrestleTalk or Cultaholic. They were really close. Both great friends of ours.
Yes.
Both teams, not Mr. WrestleTalk and Mr. Cultaholic. WrestleTalk came in number 1 with 151 votes. I wonder if I can get like Luke to do a little Matt Chat video between now and when I edit this.
Maybe
See if we can
to
run
accept
that
this
now.
prestigious award.
Yeah, here's Luke from WrestleTalk.
Woohoo! Yes, go us! Thank you to everyone who voted. It really does mean a lot to all of us here at WrestleTalk. I also did give an acceptance speech, which you can check out in that video, which we've linked to in the video description down below. Thanks a lot, friendos. Speaking of being backloaded, perhaps. So we jump up now from 5th place to 4th place and 27 points to 48 points. Wow. Because Bianca Belair got 11 nominations. Who came in 4th got 25 nominations and 5 top-level nominations.
Damn.
The current AEW World Heavyweight Champion, Hangman Adam Page.